having them understand the language of research, how the question needs to be framed, and what you're asking for is massively important. And that's what we're trying to achieve, is to get those research grants to start the building of that capability and capacity.
Before I get it growling, because I realise we need to move you on to get into that conversation. I did have one question, and I think it just relates to trial that's come from David Chaff on Zoom. How can we use a different word other than trial that is more sexy for whānau to make them want to, I'm not changing his words here, for whānau to make them want to take part of the clinical trial? Just that one, and then we're gonna, is there a word?
I would just say, don't use the experiment.
But no idea. But we've left languaging of questions and proposals up to those whānau who are doing it. There was one around real sensitive topic around suicide prevention, but they did not want to have that as the title of their research kaupapa. So we left that naming of that kaupapa to them and to work on that strength side approach. I barely look at myself in the mirror, so me trying to give advice on how to be sexy, you're asking the wrong person, sorry, Dan.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. I know it was short. Ahakoa iti he pounamu, but I'm going to let you guys go off to your next important hui, which is planning I guess, in the context of Matariki Manako Nui, thinking about the future, and hopefully that chance for you guys to continue that top corridor. So I'm going to shepherd you up to our colleague up there who's going to direct you to the next room, and we're going to plow on through with some of our stuff. Tēnā koe. Toropu, who we're going to that hui, now's the time to go as well. But yeah, you guys are good. Yep. Ka pai. And just the mahia tutu, Lashan, good to see you, Ehua. HRC. Right. So now online, we have the pleasure of hearing from our tumuaki, Cindy Dargable of Hei Ahuru Mōwai, who's going to provide a bit of an update on some things. Let me just get Cindy up. Here's the wonderful Cindy. Kia ora, Cindy. Wonderful again to have you. I know we had you last year at the Matariki Rangahau series, but thank you for giving us your time today. I don't want to take up any more of it. So kia koe te mana.
Kia ora, thank you, Kimi. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Ka pai. He mihi mana hau kia koutou katoa. Thanks for inviting me along. My little kōrero today is just to give you an update of where Hei Ahuru Mōwai is at during this time of Matariki. It's actually a really good time for us to present on what we're doing. Do I need to share my slides, or can somebody help me with that? And I've got about 5 minutes just to kōrero. Because I did talk last year, I thought I'd just give you a quick overview of what it is that Hei Ahuru Mōwai does, because some of you may not know already. Kimi, do you want me to share, or ka pai? Choice. Thank you. So Hei Ahuru Mōwai is going through a transition period right now. I'm the current CEO and have been for the past 12 months or so. And we've had a massive program of work. If you go to the next slide, many of you will know that our mission is to embed the rangatiratanga into cancer control, to eliminate cancer inequities, and to advocate for better health outcomes for whānau within the health system. And this year, we have been working really hard to achieve those outcomes with our partners along the way. The next slide shows the whakapapa of where we've come from and our year 3000 goal of ko te mati puku, ko te pō, ko te whānau Māori, ki te whaiao, ki te ao marama. So over the past 12 months, we have been looking at ourselves as an organisation and trying to make ourselves more sustainable so that we can do the work that we do, because many of our network members and experts are volunteers. And so it takes a lot for this organisation to run and support the network members. We've been partnering with our existing partners, including Te Aho, Te Kahu, Te Akamātauranga, the Integrated Cancer Services, the Cancer Society, in order to advocate and push for our goals that we want to achieve. We've been partnering with and supporting the 20 Hawara Māori Cancer Care Coordination providers nationwide, and that's a new initiative for us. So we've been working to find out what the needs are of those providers and support the mahi for them going forward, and most importantly, to help support the sustainability of those programs of work so that they aren't lost in the transformation of the health system that's currently happening, if you want to call it transformation. We've established some new communication channels. Hopefully those people who are part of our network or sign up will have regular pānui from us, keeping you up to date on what's happening in the cancer research, cancer equity space. Our goal is to keep our whānau informed of what's happening in terms of cancer equity for Māori and for whānau, and how we're making improvements or working to establish best practice in that space. We've been, with the current government, writing letters to the Minister to support some of the inequities that exist within the health system, particularly in bowel cancer screening, breast cancer, and also Māori cancer workforce, and cervical screening as well. So ensuring that funding and resource is targeted to ensuring Māori and Pacific whānau have access to screening and support. We've grown from about 45 members to now about 136 members, which is fantastic for us. That means we can share more widely the learnings that we hear, and to have support from more of our experts, including whānau and whānau who have experienced cancer. And just moving on to the next slide, one of the biggest things that's happened for us this year is that we won the bid to host the World Indigenous Cancer Conference in 2026. This is a pretty big deal for us, for a small organisation like Hei Ahuru Mowai, to be able to bring this conference to Aotearoa in 2 years. And it will take us that long to organise it, and to be able to have the support from everyone we need to make sure that it's a world-class event, and something that will bring our Indigenous whānau from all over the world to Aotearoa. Our whānau from other countries are really keen and supported our bid, so they want to come here. The venue and the location will be in Rotorua. So what I want to say to anyone that's out there today is, if you're keen to be involved, to help support us host, we're looking at establishing a working group to get this mahi underway. And finally, my last slide is just to let you know that that we have a new tumuaki, who is actually a face that you will have seen a lot around Hei Ahuru Mowai. He's actually one of the founding members of Hei Ahuru Mowai, so it's a beautiful, beautiful circle that Gary is now going to take over the tumuaki role. I'll be stepping back and going to work within Te Whatuora Health New Zealand and the prevention team to manage the National Cervical Screening Program. And so Gary has graciously offered to take over the interim role as the tumuaki. We're so lucky to have him. He's so highly experienced in governance and has been the chair of Hei Ahuru Mowai and trustee on Pinnacle Health Trust. He also has been involved in iwi governance for many, many years, and he's been part of the Māori Monitoring and Equity Group for the National Screening Unit. So he's also, as well as handsome, he has also some tohu. He's got a Masters of Management from the University of Auckland and a postgrad diploma in Māori development. So I want you to help me join in welcoming Gary as the new rangatira in the space and to lead Hei Ahuru Mowai for the next 12 months. So mauri ora e te whānau, nei rā ngā mihi o te wā o Mātariki. And I wanted to let you know that there will be a quiet time for us as Gary's getting into the role. So please don't think we've gone anywhere. We're just transitioning with great care to achieve the mission and the values that we've set. Kia ora koutou.
Kia ora. Tēnā koe, Cindy. Firstly, thank you for that update on where we've come with Hei Ahuru Mowai. Secondly, while I'm sad that you're leaving as CEO, I really enjoyed our time working together. Getting some really cool stuff across the line, and really appreciate all of the time that you've given to all of us. So just on my behalf and hopefully others as well, thank you very much for all of your leadership over this period of time. And I know that you're going to do an amazing job in your new role, which is really super important. So, and great, I'm glad that Matua Gary is able to step into that role. So thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Now, somehow you've ended with me for the next talk. No, I'm going to update on, in the spirit of future directions, growing on from some of the work that we've done with Hei Ahuru Mowai in collaboration with the Cancer Society of New Zealand. Full disclosure, I did this talk at the World Indigenous Cancer Conference with Nicole Stanton. She's away having a well-deserved vacation at the moment, so she can't be here in person. So the way that it worked at at the World Indigenous Cancer Conference was that we co-presented because we were representing a tiriti-based partnership between Hei Ahuru Mowai, so me from Hei Ahuru Mowai and Nicole from the Cancer Society. So you're going to hear Nicole's words and the Cancer Society's words through me as best as I can. I'll just get my slides sorted out. Bear with me for a second. In the meantime, I had actually moved the Slido, I think, along. There should be is there a new question that has come up? I haven't put it up on the screen. Did you mean in the Slido login? Oh, okay. The password is Uruponamu. Urupare. 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 Sorry, I'm trying to juggle about 3 things at the same time. Apologies. I will write it into my front slide so that you can see it. This is the code for the new Slido today at the bottom, and I will just get my slides going. Sorry about this, team. Button at the bottom to do slideshow. Okay, there we go. Apologies. Okay, so yeah, I've just written it at the bottom. Urupare, that's the code to get into today's Slido, and I think we should be on the next session, on the next one on there. Okay. Sorry. Never mind, I'll just wing it. Okay. Ka whati te tae ka pā te torea. This is a whakatauki or Māori proverb that speaks about the opportunity seized by the torea as the, which is the oyster catcher, as the tide recedes. So as the tide recedes, they get in and have a kai, and then the tide comes and they fly away. So basically the general idea is we, through a collaboration, we've put together an opportunity, and this is a challenge out there to budding, inspired researchers to put their hat in the ring and have a go and come and get amongst some research. As we've heard this morning, sometimes the solution to access issues is through research, and we need a workforce that can deliver that and answer some of these questions. It's a common topic that comes up around the world, particularly amongst Indigenous communities, around access to research. We need more researchers who can do that. Anecdotally, I keep hearing people are reluctant to come and talk to me because they know that I'm stretched, and that's absolutely true. So is all of our colleagues. And so the only solution to that is to grow more research, well, workforce, right? So there, I'll throw that in. So that's the context. And so, yeah, it's a whakatauki that we've adopted to when promoting the Māori Cancer Researcher Awards, which is the result of a TDT-based partnership between Hei Ahuru Mowai and Te Kāhui Matapukapuku o Aotearoa, the Cancer Society of New Zealand, so the national branch. So if I can just get my slides to work. They're very slow today. It might be my laptop. There we go. Sorry, wrong way. Okay, apologies. So I'm going to do my acknowledgements right at the start. There were some really key people. I really want to thank the chief executives of Cancer Society at the time. Initially, it was Lucy Elwood, and then Rachel Hart, who carried that on, as well as key members within the Cancer Society of that team, Sisiri Sanseri, Dr. Melanie McConnell, and Nicole Stanton, who are all authors on this abstract for this talk. And then, of course, from our end, Moa Huia, who was the CEO at the time, Cindy, who carried on, and hopefully Gary into the future, and our next CEO, as well as Nina Scott, Jackie Kidd, and myself. And then more recently, the addition of the Gut Cancer Foundation through Liam Willis and Sharon Patterson. So, as well as, of course, all of those past and current assessment committee members and applicants. A lot of this works on the back of us volunteering our time so that we can actually dedicate the resources to the actually researchers. And so that's our contribution by and large. And the whakapapa developed from input from Moa Huia, who presented at the Cancer Society New Zealand board in 2020 and discussed how to implement their equity charter. She was a major part in terms of establishing the Cancer Society New Zealand's equity charter. That led to a few other conversations on how to implement that document authentically. At the same time, Jackie Kidd, who was sitting on one of their national scientific advisory committee, felt, unfortunately, that it was culturally unsafe. And so that then started a whole bunch of conversations about how do we fix that? How do we get that? And what is raising sometimes these challenging, these confronting situations? If you look at it optimistically, it's an opportunity to do things better. It's an opportunity to come up with a solution that's moving forward, right? So that was it. And on one hand, Hei Ahuru Mowai was asked to have more members on the NSAC, not exactly good, but not exactly solving the issue. And we thought, no, what if we started something new and designed something new from the ground up in many ways? And that was Moa Huia who led that. How could we, rather than just being an add-on to an existing structure, can we establish a new structure and figure out the rules from the start and how we can operate? And so that created negotiations. And what we came up, to cut a long story short, inspired by the Matike Mai model, we came up with, oh yeah, you can see it there. We wanted to address two things that each organization was looking for. So on the left-hand side, Hei Ahuru Mowai, obviously it's pretty clear what we want to address Māori health inequities. We want to grow and support Māori cancer workforce. We want sustainable ways to support our tiriti partners. And we want to do that, we want to actually redesign the whare about how we can do that. And on the Cancer Society, again, very similar goals. So it wasn't that hard to have this conversation. They wanted to also address Māori health inequities. They wanted to support kaupapa Māori research. They wanted to attract more Māori applicants to the fund, and they wanted more Māori involved in Cancer Society processes, all things. So they've actually been trying to get more Māori researchers funded, but they've actually struggled to actually get them in and support them. So the will has always been there. And so this is really just about how. And so we were inspired by the Matike Mai model, and we came up with the Māori Cancer Researcher Awards as a starting point. Something they already do well, funding researchers, funding projects to get off the ground. And so, yeah, as I said, we're inspired by Matike Mai, which talks about the way that we could live, a sort of a constitutional discussion around how we could live te tiriti. And it's around the idea of having these two sort of houses. One is a tino rangatiratanga space, which is categorically informed by Article 2. The right to tino rangatiratanga, basically, Māori making decisions over their health and taonga, that sort of thing. And so Hei Ahuru Mowai sit very firmly in that tino rangatiratanga space. The Cancer Society and all connected sit in the kāwanatanga space, governed by Article 1. And Article 1, very, very oversimplistically, just simply means making good decisions. And making good decisions means making sure you've got good information to make good decisions. Usually that translates to consultation with Māori to understand what good information or what good decisions look like, right? So quite simple. But what they bring in that governance, that kāwanatanga space, is obviously they provide assessors, they provide a lot of the funding, resources, and infrastructure, which is huge, tremendous, a massive step in that, and so important. From the Hei Ahuru Mowai side, we also provide a co-chair. We also provide assessors to that. You're often in a voluntary capacity. And then, of course, we also have an extensive network of Māori researchers. You've seen over the last couple of days of Māori researchers across the country, everywhere around the cancer care, all things cancer, where they're Māori, we're all in that network. And then, so the other thing we have is our Ahuru Tauira program, which is a bit of an extra pastoral care program where we touch base with our students, our recipients, extra to what the institutions are expected to do. I want us to make that point clear, or actually I'll touch on that point later. But and then the relational space is where we come together. So that's the meeting spaces about how we bring our roles and responsibilities into the wānanga space, and then that's the doing part in the middle where we're working together, right? It's reasonably straightforward, I think. And in this context, in terms of coming up with new scholarships, it was around designing new scholarships, figuring out the assessment. So not just using the same model that's been tried, actually redesigning the process, thinking about assessment and looking at decision-making. So just a couple of examples. Come on, don't fail me now. There we go. So some of the, just a few of the priorities that we thought about. The main thing around scholarships, what do? They remove financial barriers for people to do research. One of the biggest things that I think a lot of you will probably agree with me, scholarships never kept up with the cost of living. Our students are expected to volunteer their time and they get a degree, do a whole lot of work, and barely have enough money to actually live reasonably. So that's the first one, living close to a living wage stipend. As far as I know, and quite proudly, we're the only one that has one the highest in the country, and we're waiting for funders to match us. We're trying to throw that challenge out there. At the same time, there are a lot of conversations about this, and that was Jackie Kidd that put that on the table, and is so grateful that after a back and forth, Cancer Society joined us. We also know that for students to thrive, research team and environment is a massive impact. I know a lot of students quit PhD rather than they fail for all sorts of reasons. Research team and environment is crucial. So one of the things that we want in that assessment is to understand the environment that they're going to work in. In fact, there's quite a lot of weighting. We want to know how they're going to be supported to get the job done. We obviously provide ahuru tauira, which is extra. And then, of course, the outputs of that is the priorities is to generate more Māori cancer research workforce and more leadership. And then also the other priority is there has to be a clear focus on Māori health, not just that cancer is important, but actually there's a clear focus that we're working towards known inequities, right? And they happen to align with a lot of the goals of these organizations anyway. What are the awards that are offered? As I said, stipend. So for masters, that's probably one of the best around. 35,000 for a master's is pretty good, 1 year. And that's because masters, some people don't want to do PhD. They just want to do masters. And masters is an awesome gateway into PhD. It's also an awesome gateway for people who might be in the community to come back, pick up some research skills and go back and use those research skills for their own purposes, ideally Māori-led. And you don't necessarily need a PhD for that. But a formal structure of learning under a nice structure around learning formally how to do some research with some experts that you can take back. Masters can do that for you to some degree, and it depends. And while it's nice to throw PhD scholarships out there, again, can't get enough PhD candidates if they don't have the prerequisite degree, which is a master's or honours, for example, right? So, so that's really the driver. The other one, we were inspired a lot by HRC, who did tikanga allowance, and that was to make sure that our research, there was budget to do the important work that often gets othered in terms of research priority, working expenses, lab, that's important, but actually making sure that we can ring fence budget to make sure that we are turning up to meetings with more, hopefully a bit more than a pack of biscuits and a cup of tea, you know, recognizing kaumatua for the cultural knowledge that they have, the expertise that they have, often in a retirement capacity where they're not necessarily, you know, just being able to turn up and not do things in often an offensive way by just not being able to look after the people that are actually giving us a lot of time, right? So little things like that. And then there's also all the other values that you just can't simply quantify in terms of financial terms. Still, those should overcome some barriers. And with that, it's been really successful. If my computer will just load. We have got 6 PhDs funded. You heard from Myra today, and Alexis, who unfortunately was not well. She's another that was funded for this year. We're getting close to our first cohort completing, which is really great, really excited. Our first year, we had no master's applicants. Took us a little while to figure out how to adapt the program. And so now we've got our first 2 masters as well. Anyway, that's where I wanted to leave it. They are open now. The applications are due October. We've given people a long run-in because we know the barriers to getting scholarships. June is great, but it's just not helpful to plan, build the relationships, build the networks, build the environments for, you know, so we're giving till October. And what's your criteria? You need to be Māori. It need to be addressing the goals of our partners, us, Cancer Society. And you need to have a Māori, ideally we want to see a Māori supervisor on there because they do provide a whole array of expertise, not just the technical expertise that they bring, but the other worldview related expertise as well. It's not a deal breaker. We're not going to stop someone from doing a project, but it's important because we think that's an important part of research environment, right? Yeah, so that's all. Really excited. I'm really stoked. Some of these guys came to World Indigenous Cancer Conference and they had an awesome little connection together. Suddenly our workforce has really exploded in the last few years just by simply providing an opportunity. And I get the other thing is that quite often scholarships are taken up by those in big institutions like ours, We're really deliberate about making sure that these are accessible to those who don't necessarily go to the university. So eligibility, you just have to be eligible for a postgraduate course, master's or PhD, at any of the wānanga or institutions that can provide those degrees. That's the only entry academically, is eligibility, and obviously the support of a team that can get you across the line. Okay, recognizing lots of things. So we are hoping to see more community members apply and dip their toe in the research realm. And then lastly, just to touch on the tiriti model. The other thing we want to talk about is we've been lucky that other charities have come to us and want to do the same thing. But we're like, we don't want to rebuild every time. So instead, Cancer Society and us, we hold the main space, and any charity that wants to come on and help us can bring their money, bring their resources, and we're going to work within the structure. So just like the Gut Cancer Foundation joined, rather than recreating, they joined the Kāwanatanga Whare. And that's a way to get us working smarter, not harder, and directing resources in a better way, so that given that we rely on our assessors to volunteer, we're not having to do multiple assessment meetings over the whole year. Does that make sense? So if you're doing a gut cancer gut cancer related condition, you can tick the box and Gut Cancer Foundation will pay for that, and the process is the same. Does that make sense? Working smarter, not harder. That's the idea around it. Yeah. So they're open Friday at noon, 11th of October is the deadline. I think there's an earlier deadline for registration. Spread the word out. Let's get some more Māori scholars funded. It can be anywhere as long as it's related to cancer. As long as it's related to cancer. Okay. Kia ora. Oh. Okay, yeah, and then just in from David. I'm going to check this out. The other thing is I've got a platform. David just wanted to throw a little reminder out there of an advertisement, I think, for the Chief Advisor Māori at Te Aho. Application closes on midnight, the 28th of June. So if any of you are budding, want to get in there and advise Te Aho, our National Cancer Agency, on things Māori, check out their website. And I'm going to throw David under the bus maybe and see if they can reach out to him if he's got some tips on what it's like to work in that environment, maybe to... Waiting for him to respond. No, that's all right. Okay. Yeah. So kia ora, thank you for your time. We were going to... Is Nina back yet? No. Okay. So Nina was going to talk about he pai whakatere. Instead, it's lunchtime. Sorry? Lunch is ready. So that's a nice short session. We're going to go have a kai. If Nina's still, we've got an awesome cancer trials session this afternoon, which I think would be really, really good, thinking about all of the issues around developing cancer trials. Noting we want to come up with a new word. We start with a new word for trials. Yeah. Any questions on the scholarships by chance? Yeah. Yep.
How good is the regional awareness of the research master's plan?
Fantastic question, something we're trying to address. The first year, not great, because I found it was only me retweeting on Twitter. So the first thing is to get that reach is when you see the pānui, spread it. Just let it fly. Doesn't matter. The only way that people know and join is they know it's out there. Spread the word, retweet, chuck on LinkedIn, whatever it is. That's the obvious way. We have been trying to be more proactive by talking directly to the wānanga, especially in master's programs, so that we can put it on their horizon. So when they've got someone in their year, they might be starting to think about what their project looks like and where they're going to get funding. Yeah, so we are trying to be proactive each time. Yeah. But you're right, it needs to be better. Yep. Especially in our communities. Yep. The university, if you're in the university, it's probably easy to find, but the communities, yeah. Any other questions? No? Okay. Well, then that's all from this particular session. Hope to see you guys back this afternoon. We'll show some of those Slido results before the afternoon session. Go and have a fabulous kai. Hopefully keep those networks and collaborations growing, that napkin science going. Tēnā koutou katoa. See you later, you fellas, online. Good to go. Okay. Huru kia rangi, huru kia papa, huru ki te u kai pō, whano, tau mai te mauri haumia huie. Kia ora. The end of that session, I think, welcome back. Hopefully your tummies are full for ki te puku, so that can help us with our brains for the rest of the afternoon. The last session was talking about the future a bit more and how we can plan for the year ahead, as is the nature of Matariki. What are we going to plant? What are we going to grow? What are the next steps? That's kind of the idea. And I guess in that spirit, we're going to hear from Nina, who was going to do a talk in the last session, but we're going to just squeeze it in right now because it's important, on Pai Whakatere, which is from Breast Screen Aotearoa, the Quality Improvement Review. Kia ora, Nina.
And I'm doing this in place of Max, who has to be somewhere else today. So kia ora, Max. So Pai Whakatere is, let's just go to the next slide. I haven't actually seen these slides, so there you go. I'm just going to make it up as I go along. I've been involved in breast screening for many years. It was one of my last jobs as a public health registrar, was working in the National Screening Unit with breast screening. And I think when you're young and you just do these projects, you kind of end up doing them for the rest of your life. So I'm nearly 55 and I'm still doing breast screening. And I think I've been involved in maybe at least 3 or 4 reviews of the National Screening Program, both large and small. And we had another large review into the breast screening program in 2022. And it was a really small 4-person team chaired by Dale Bramley. And we came up with all these recommendations. And the thing with these recommendations is they're pretty much the same as all of the other recommendations that I've been involved in for breast screening and that haven't been done. There hasn't been a lot of change. At the time of the review, there was no Māori at all in the National Breast Screening Program. And so we had all of these things that we wanted to change. And we thought, well, how can we actually get these things done this time? So we thought, oh, let's set up some Māori governance. Because, you know, when you're doing hauora Māori, the first thing you look at is, you know, te tiriti or waitangi, and making sure that there is some power sharing going on. So we thought, oh, we'll set up this Māori, we'll make a recommendation around setting up this Māori governance oversight group. And we called this Pai Whakatere. And somehow I got convinced to be chair of Pai Whakatere. And I didn't choose the members of the group, but whoever did an amazing job. So they're an amazing group of wahine Māori and Pacific who have been given the job of overseeing the recommendations that were made, the implementation of the recommendations. And when we formed as a group, the breast screening team had just written up a budget, and they had applied for about $30 million to do the work that needed to be done from the recommendations. And what ended up in being quite a good thing actually was that that budget was rejected by the then people in charge of funding. And so that gave Pai Whakatere the opportunity to get involved in writing the budget. And every spare hour of our day was spent on reworking this proposal and the budget. And we ended up getting it this time. And instead of 30 million, we got 50 million over 5 years. So we've got some money and we have a plan. And I won't go into the details of the plan because there's a lot to do. But the main thing we're looking at is we need to get more Māori and Pacific women access to breast cancer screening. That's our #1 job. And we have got Māori and Pacific women deciding how to do this, which kind of makes sense, really. So it's a good thing, and we've just started with a lot of the projects, and Maxine Ronald, who spoke earlier about her sister's experience with lung cancer, is a member of Pai Whakatere and was going to give this talk. Maxine is a breast cancer surgeon who does a range of different surgeries. Oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm talking about here. I'm not a surgeon, including breast cancer surgery and reconstruction, I think. And Maxine has also had her own breast cancer journey and has been the recipient of a 3-year fellowship for leadership in breast cancer from Hei Ahuru Mowai and Breast Cancer Cure and the Breast Cancer Foundation, and that has just kicked off. So we are all ready to do a lot of work in this space. One of the projects I can talk about is we want to know what screening rate we need for Māori women to get equitable breast cancer outcomes with non-Māori women. So currently we have a very high risk of death from breast cancer, and we want to know, you know, if we get a 90% screening rate, access to breast screening, what does that mean for our life expectancy gap? You know, is that going to carve off another half a year along with breast lung screening and all of that kind of stuff? So one of the big projects underway is the new kind of IT platform, which is going to make it much easier to invite women into screening. And we're doing a whole lot of co-design work and working to kind of weave the FIDI program into the cancer screening pathways, and hoping that we can do that in the lung cancer screening program in the next 5 years as well as doing it into the bowel screening program. This was one of the series of engagements that we're going to have around the country, because one of our leads on Pai Whakatere is Rachel Corrales, who is CEO. Oh, there's Rachel just there, who runs Kote Pacifica, a large Pacific community health organisation, was saying, hey, we haven't had the opportunity to engage in our rohe with the people doing the breast cancer work, and the providers and all of those support to service providers. So we identified that we need to have these wānanga whānau around the country, and we're going to have, I think, maybe 8 of them, and we've had 1 so far. So there's a lot of engagement to do. Another project that we're doing is we are going to work, we're starting with Thames Hospital to identify when women come into hospital, because almost a third of Māori and Pacific women of screening, actually no, it's not a third, a half of Māori and Pacific women of breast cancer screening age, so that's 45 to 69, are seen in a hospital service every year. That's either admitted, seen in ED, or seen in outpatient clinic, and the hospital service does nothing to say, oh, are you up to date with your breast screening, and while you're here, can we enroll you or book you in, or just provide you with a mammogram, let alone all of those other cancer screening opportunities. So yeah, it's a great talk. Stop. Okay, I'll go backwards. It's dark. It's nice after lunch, we can all have a little sleep. So is that's it?
On that,
Yes,
are you happy to segue into the next part?
I'm happy to segue into the
This
next,
happens to be you,
which
which
this
is
is
to set the scene, cancer trials.
excellent. Okay, so if anybody's got any questions on Pai Whakatere and breast screening in general, if you've got any great initiatives, whānau hauā, we are not collecting data on whānau hauā. We need to figure out how to do that. And as Whaitania says, we need to make whānau hauā the benchmark, so make sure somehow we can figure out how to measure access to cancer screening for whānau hauā. So let's hope we can do a project to figure that out together. So I have the next speaking slide of another set of slides that I have not yet seen. So let's see what they say. But oh, here we go.
I'll just interject really quickly.
Go. Do you,
Slido, the next question has moved. I'm not going to bring it up on the screen, but hopefully if you're using Slido, it should be, how can researchers best support community-led health research initiatives? So I guess you can keep that question in mind around clinical trials, but it was supposed to be an extension of the stuff that was just happening before lunch as much as possible. So there's your chance for ideas, open-ended questions. Held up.
cool. Ah, so I have seen these slides. I think they were a little bit changed, but these are this is a presentation that I gave at the World Indigenous Cancer Conference in Melbourne earlier this year. So there's been a lot of work going on nationally to get a better research infrastructure for Aotearoa New Zealand. And as part of that, you know, we have a whole lot of stuff to do from a Māori perspective. You know, we only constitute 4% of the research workforce, and we need to massively improve that. So we have some big dreams, but I'm just going to focus this talk on one of the little first steps that we want to be doing, and that is establishing a national cancer research network. So we've been talking about setting up a national cancer clinical trials network for a long time, and I think these notes that you can see here are from a discussion at a conference a year or so ago. So people have been thinking about how this could work. And as part of that, we would want to be helping all cancer researchers make their research more responsive for Māori in multiple different ways. And as Māori cancer researchers, we do spend a lot of our time doing this kind of stuff. So it'd be really nice to have like some national templates so that you know, everybody can kind of have improved access to Māori for their research. And we also want, as part of this national cancer research network, to be able to develop and share a list of, you know, Māori cancer research priorities. Sometimes I talked about this before, that research programs and projects are designed based on researcher skill sets rather than, you know, the Māori health priorities, which are often really unsexy things like transport, you know, and we actually need to sort out that transport issue. So we need to have projects and programs, cancer research projects and programs that are based on what communities want and need. And that's the discussion that's happening across the road currently with Boyd and Lashan in the IMPB space. How do we get that happening? Yeah, there's a lot of really easy stuff that needs to happen, but in the siloed spaces that we're all in, it's really difficult to share that best practice, because there's too many cancer research units around the country to engage with. You know, being 4% of the research workforce, there's just not enough Māori researchers out there to kind of work with everybody. So we need some better ways of sharing. Yeah, so I won't go through the business case. The workforce, I think we might have talked about this before, but Hei Ahuru Mowai did a partner. Hei Ahuru Mowai is the National Māori Cancer Leadership Group, and we did a partnership with the Cancer Society and the Gut Foundation to improve the potential for Māori research workforce capacity gain through their funding. So Hei Ahuru Mowai doesn't budget hold or anything. We just work with these organisations, and we designed We designed the funding packages and the scholarship packages to include a living wage stipend, which is the first ever. Because we thought, we don't want our students to be struggling because they're struggling anyway. So we have the living wage, and then we sit around the table and decide who's going to get the funding. And then it's not just, hey, here's the money, off you go, do your PhDs and your masters. We stay connected with those students throughout their journey. And this photo is some of our students that we took to the World Indigenous Cancer Conference in Melbourne. So it's about that whanaungatanga. And I'm going to whip through. So this question was asked, I think, Kimmy, was this CTNZ asked these questions, Sarah? Yeah, CTNZ asked these two questions at a recent conference. And so the question was, what is it important for a national cancer clinical trials network to do in order to help improve cancer outcomes? And these are the five main themes. So advocate for equitable access, because even, because some research trials, you get the proper drug versus the placebo, and you don't know which one you've got, right? But regardless of whether you get the proper drug or the placebo, you will have better outcomes than somebody who didn't get to partake in the clinical trial. And that's because while you're on the clinical trial, you have more people checking your blood pressure and making sure you're up to date with everything. So access to clinical trials is a good thing, regardless of whether you get the proper drug or the placebo. And sometimes it's not a drug trial, obviously, but and then it's all that coordination and not reinventing the wheel for every cancer research unit, having some prioritization, and then integrating clinical trials and research centres into a learning healthcare system. So research becomes a central part of how we do business in health. And then facilitating industry collaboration and supporting small sites so that you don't have to be, in Auckland to get access to these clinical trials. And then who are the people who we should be working with? And that list is endless because it's kind of like everybody. But these are just some of the people. I'm going to go backwards. So I don't know how to go back. Oh, here we go. 1, 2. And then in the Te Whatu Ora team that I'm part of, we're like, okay, so we need to set up these clinical trial, a national cancer clinical trials network. We've got no money. We keep trying to get money and we haven't got any. So let's just do it. And we want to have it a Māori-centred kind of approach first, because if you just set up your clinical trials network and then in 6 months or a year, we'll try and figure out how we'll make this work for Māori, we've kind of missed the boat. So let's do that first. So let's start it. Oh, I've started enough networks to know that's all you need to do is just say, who wants to be part of the network? And everybody goes, yep. And then you've got your network and then you find the money. So we will find the money. Currently, we're just a group of enthusiastic people. We've had 2 meetings. The first meeting, there was 5 people, and I think the next meeting there was probably 6. And look, here you go. You guys are all part of the network because you're here. So welcome to the launch of the National Aotearoa New Zealand Cancer Clinical Trials Network, Cancer Research Network, I think, which should include clinical trials. Yay! And there it is. We have our network. Who needs money? And I think there's a lot, obviously a lot of important people aren't here who are actually, the cancer researchers around the country, but we've at least created a space for them to come in, and we've got it's all about potential from here on in, isn't it? Yeah, so I think what we're going to do now, Camille, is we're going to have a discussion on it, and we're going to put some questions on the Slido, and one of those questions is, what is it? Can you please add to these 5 things, or just, elaborate on those 5 things. And also if there are any other kind of groups who you think should be involved, or if you want to be involved yourselves, let us know. And I think we've got one of the things that I have done quite early on is to hit up one of the concerns was that, sorry all you Auckland people, was that from all the rest of the country who's not Auckland, they're like, oh, we don't want this to be an Auckland owned thing. So and I'm like, well, you know, that's all right, because we'll make it a Māori thing first, and then everybody else can just come play nicely. And so I did ask Sue the other day via text, would you be okay if you were the co-chair of the network until you know you found somebody else, and you said okay. So you always ask the busiest person. So thank you, Sue. And Myra, who was here yesterday, and she's a Māori oncologist and also a cancer researcher. She's also not from Auckland, and she said she would be okay being the co-chair as well. So thank you, Myra, if you're online. And we've got some more questions.
Lisa.
Oh, we got Lisa
Yeah,
talking
Lisa's
now.
talking.
Excellent. So now we're heading over to Lisa, my colleague. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Nina, for setting the scene for the afternoon. We've got 3 fabulous speakers before we get into our wānanga space that a wonderful George will lead and facilitate moving forward around, stuff we need to talk about, I suppose, to move this sort of network forward and focus on. So I don't want to take up any more of Lisa's time. She's waiting online to talk for us, but Professor Lisa Stamp is an academic rheumatologist at University of Otago in Christchurch and Te Whatuora, Waitaha, Canterbury. She's the director of the Canterbury Rheumatology and Immunology Research Group. So research focuses on rheumatic diseases like gout and currently available treatments for rheumatic diseases like gout and rheumatic arthritis. Does a lot of work in clinical trials, pharmacogenetic studies, particularly around allopurinol and methotrexate and some of their newer biological therapies as well. And she's a recipient of the Arthritis New Zealand National Researcher Award and a gold medal for research by University of Otago, Christchurch, and elected of Ngā Ahurai a Te Aparangi Fellowship of Royal Society Te Aparangi in 2023. So Lisa, thank you very much for joining us and contributing to this important discussion. He mihi mutunga kore tēnei ki a koe. I'll get out of your way and let you take us away.
Kia ora koutou. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. I take it you can see my slides? Yep, great. So I'm actually here, I am a clinical trialist, but I'm actually here in my role as clinical research lead at Te Whatuora. And Nina's given us an enthusiastic introduction to the launch of the Cancer Clinical Trials Network, or Cancer Research Network for Aotearoa. And I just really wanted to put that in a little bit of context around what we're doing nationally. So you'll all be aware that we've had this big transformation over the last year nearly, where we've gone from 20 DHBs to 4 districts and uniting as Te Whatuora Health New Zealand. And while many of you who are working in the healthcare sector will know this has been disruptive and challenging, it also provides some really amazing opportunities for research infrastructure, collaboration, and the start of research networks across the motu. So where research sits in Te Whatuora, for those of you who are not aware, we're part of SI&I, Service Improvement and Innovation Directorate, and we have a particular stream called Evidence Research and Clinical Trials. And this stream really is purely focused on research and how we can increase equitable access to research, both for people who want to participate in research and those who want to undertake research. And our main aim at the end of all of this is to improve health outcomes for all New Zealanders. So just so you know, there's a number of different streams that run within evidence research and clinical trials, but there are two I think that are of particular interest to this meeting today. One is research, and the other is the Māori health research stream. And those are working together really to try and build infrastructure, build support, and align our processes and procedures. We've gone from 20 DHBs, each with its own way of doing things, to one organisation, and albeit there'll be regional differences, we do want some alignment. And I think this is also feeds very much into starting these research networks, because they're going to be a huge part of helping us implement research and get the outcomes from it and the deliverables in terms of improving healthcare that we want. So just so you're aware who the team are, Robin Whittaker's our director. We have Helen Wihongi, who's the GM Māori Research, myself as clinical lead, Deb Matic, who is GM Research, who oversees all of the research officers and support. Then we have Peter Murgatroyd, Library and Knowledge, and Rosie Dobson, which is really Health Services Research and Evaluation, which is a lot of quality improvement. So what's our goal? Our goal is to help support the conduct of high quality research within Te Whatu Ora, and as I said, to support equitable access to evidence and research. And as Nina's alluding to this, Nina's alluded to, we really need to embed a learning culture in Te Whatu Ora, so that everybody has access to participate in whatever level they want to. We need to ensure that we're working alongside Nina's team to co-govern research activity and to ensure that Māori health is prioritised in research evaluation and translation. So I think having a Māori lead to the start of the cancer network is a really fantastic way of helping to enact that purpose. We really want to ensure there's good visibility, but also that we've got really high quality research happening across the motu. And a really big part of this, I think, is going to be supporting training and workforce development. We're all very much aware of the shortfall in Māori health research workforce and the need to build strategies and ways to develop that community. And then obviously we really are wanting to build strong and effective relationships with the wider community. So if I take a stock take of where we are now, because that's all our purpose and it's all very great, and you know, we're all really committed to this, but we've got a long way to go. So if I think about where we are now with respect to research in the organisation, it's not seen as a core part of our health system. It's inadequately supported, it doesn't always address health priorities or inequities. There's gaps and inequities in terms of access to clinical trials. Nina's already alluded to the fact that we know that Māori are generally underrepresented in clinical trials. That's the same worldwide. Engaging Indigenous populations into clinical trial activity is terrible. And that's something that we need to focus on. And I think the strategy that Nina's taking here with having Māori led at the start will really hopefully help start to lead the way in how we can overcome that. I think we've got a real lack of system level direction, strategy and co-governance of the infrastructure for research. We really are failing to translate our findings into clinical practice. And there's really big gaps in best practice with regards to Māori engagement, consumer engagement, governance, data sovereignty, and just about everything else. So we've got a starting point, but we've got a huge way to go. And so in terms of success, I think this is where we'd like to be, that we've got a learning culture where core high quality research is a core part of our system. As Nina's already said, just being in a hospital where clinical trials run, you have a better outcome, even if you yourself are not enrolled in a clinical trial. And if you're enrolled in a clinical trial, you have a better outcome than if you're not, even if you are on placebo, just because the quality of care is higher. We need really effective research leadership, and that has to be co-governance driven. We need streamlined processes to support researchers. We need good models for knowledge translation and implementation into clinical practice, and really strong and effective relationships. So if we think about how we're going to achieve success, I think clinical trials are one means where we can start. Many of you may be aware of the Enhancing Aotearoa New Zealand Clinical Trials report. That was a project that was co-funded by the Ministry of Health and the HRC, that really has provided the framework for what we are now starting to do at a national level. And that is, this diagram, I think, really kind of says it all, that we are looking at the big ecosystem for research, which we hope will include a National Clinical Trials Infrastructure Centre, which is most likely to be a virtual hub, surrounded by regional clinical trial coordinating centres, which also have little spokes out into the community. You'll see there we've got both clinical trial networks, Māori clinical trial networks, and Pacific research networks as being key parts of the ecosystem. And in order to develop this, we're going to need to work with all of the organisations around. And the current place where, the current stage that we're at is currently writing an implementation plan to go to Minister Reti by the end of August, which outlines our first thoughts at how this type of infrastructure could be implemented across the motu, and the cost, so that hopefully we can go to a vote health bid to get the funds required, because it will be a substantial amount of money. So just finally, I just wanted to focus on the Cancer Research Network. I think you're right, Nina, it shouldn't be a clinical trials network, because there is more to research than clinical trials, but clinical trials will form a very key part of this, simply because so much of cancer care, routine cancer care, already involves being enrolled in a clinical trial. From the ERCT perspective, we are really supporting this network to be the first cab off the rank. We're hoping that it will then be the exemplar for other national research networks. We're really here at ERCT to help facilitate the development and anything else that we can do. I think we're very much focused on making sure that the governance and goals are a national-led thing, because, as I say, this will be used as the exemplar for other networks. As Nina's already said, I'm probably the one voice that always comes up at the meeting and says, don't forget, there's a lot of Aotearoa New Zealand south of the Bombay Hills, and I think I'm really glad Sue's on board to co-chair in the start, because we need to make sure this is seen as a national initiative, not an Auckland initiative, because I think my sense from discussions in the south is that might be a hindrance rather than a help if it's seen as being an Auckland-led initiative. And I think that we at ERCT will have a lot that we can help with. We are already working at a national level, as I said before, to standardise research policies, procedures, resources for researchers and networks, so that we hopefully will have the opportunity to work with the Cancer Network to help make sure that the resources that we're developing are going to be suitable for use in the networks. So I will finish there and happy to take questions or wait until the general discussion at the end.
Lisa, thank you very much. Yeah, we'll hold questions for the wānanga, and we're going to make sure we're a little bit tight for time, but to make sure, we'll make sure that we can get some questions for you before, I know you have to leave sharply at 3, so make sure of that. So I'm going to now welcome up our CTNZ crew.
Video. So Katrina's done a video.
Great.
Show that first.
Oh, Katrina's done a video, okay.
Yeah.
Because she's not here in
She's
person.
not here.
Katrina is here, our wairua. I'm going to see a pre-captured version of Katrina for her talk.
Plug it in and then.
Okay.
Should she do it through Zoom?
This is good.
Then I join.
Plug that in.
And then she'll say,
Yes,
yeah.
devices.
This is-
We just share it. Oh, are you on Zoom?
No, but I can join.
No. And then jump on Zoom. In the meantime, I have taken Nina's suggestion on a question for the clinical trial. So sorry if you only got a very short window of time with a community engaged initiative. But starting, you saw the list of those 5 priorities for the trial. Now I've set it up slider to open-ended question so you guys can give your own feedback on what you think are priorities for a clinical trial network to be thinking about moving forward. You're all subject matter experts, so we all know the issues around clinical trials in New Zealand. So I'm sure you've got your own take or input, and we'll have that running, and I'll try and chuck that up on the stage while we're having our wānanga afterwards, if that's okay. Not
Oh, thank you. The link came, I didn't bother with the link because I've got a video, so what I can see. Okay. Or did it come from Clarice?
That is the way in. Sorry? Slide out. Okay. Yes, I was doing plan on. Yes, there was a question for that now. I'll try and get that image for the one as well. I will try and get that image, that cool infrastructure diagram. It's from the enhanced clinical trials. I know, unfortunately, we're looking at note view on the PowerPoint, so everything was a bit squished, but I'll try and get that up on the screen for our wānanga this afternoon. And thank you to the interpreter who has had to sign out. Probably gone, so throw that out to the world. While we're at it. So we've got the wānanga. We finished intending to finish at 3. There is afternoon tea afterwards. I know it's not, I can't remember if it's written into the program or not. So there is a little bit of food. I know it's Friday. Some of you will want to get home, pick up the kids or whatever, but don't be afraid to grab something on the road. And maybe for those of you who want to stick around and carry on those conversations that you're abruptly interrupted when I'm trying to get you into the theatre, please do continue.
Is that the list? Oh no. Oh.
You just need to close your I might need to drag that over to the screen.
Menu. Sharing the.
Yeah,
Oh,
what was that? Where was your video? Share screen. That one.
Yeah.
There we go. We did it. We did it now. Just make sure that I close the chat. Why won't they close?
Oh,
Oh, God. Oh, that's why. Sorry. Yeah. Oh.
I think we can't hear her.
I think your computer's muted.
Do I need to unmute?
Your computer button.
Thank you for the invitation. Yeah, ko engaran de kotera de pagawala ingari ko kikiro de pero ko ututukan ko kisha ko tena tatu karo. Thank you for the invitation to speak at the meeting covering Auckland research. I've been working in clinical trial advisory position for many years, starting out in graduate student here and continuing back here in Auckland, New Zealand, with the establishment of clinical trial New Zealand in 2003, like Finland. And what I want to talk about today is this idea of the National Cancer Trials Network. So Lisa has introduced the proposed National Clinical Trials Infrastructure, which she and her colleagues are working on. And you'll see from that that this is a very ambitious, quite complex project, but ultimately we can make it work. It will allow us to go across up to New Zealand, across many. How will we make this work for any given disease area, and in particular today, how do we make it work for cancer? And here that is in this little spot here that I think we have really referred to, isn't that idea, which is the clinical trial network. So first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about what clinical trial networks are like, what sort of thing we might look at here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and how it works. So first of all, clinical trial networks. They've been around for a long time in various sizes, and basically since people realize, not rocket science, that we can do more quicker if we actually collaborate and work together. So these clinical trial networks or groups, as they're sometimes called, do come in a wide variety of shapes and sizes, but fundamentally, they're groups of researchers, consumers, community members, who come together to identify important questions and design large-scale, multi-centre clinical trials to address those questions. There's a strong focus on investigator-initiated or cooperative group-initiated clinical trials. They tend to be public good for that reason, although some of these cooperative groups do work or groups do work with industry. And the focus very much is obtaining high quality scientific evidence about the effectiveness or cost effectiveness of intervention. Generally in the past, they have been focused around specific areas. And my first experience with cooperative group trial was when I was living in the US as a graduate student then, very young, naive, and I worked with the National Women's Tumour Study. And this study basically transformed the outcomes for children and whānau who were diagnosed with Wilms tumour. So Wilms tumour is a childhood kidney tumour, and what they did was they brought together a broad group of clinicians, pathologists, epidemiologists, and they carried out a program of research that involves over 80% of all the children diagnosed with Wilms tumour in the US in their clinical trials. That's a pretty major achievement. And so with that, they had, I guess, a variety of people involved. So the clinical trials were main focus, but the pathologists brought a lot to that by looking at basic science, understanding how we can translate that into the clinical trials to improve outcomes. They also looked at the long-term outcomes So these are children who are sort of average age around 2 when they're diagnosed. So there are a lot of massive treatments. So there are potentially some quite serious long-term consequences for that diagnosis and treatment for these children. So they did a lot of study around that as well. So it was, you know, in many ways a very formative experience for me. I felt that I learned a lot from it. I understood the power, the promise, potential of these cooperative groups to really make a difference. Down here in the south, Aotearoa, New Zealand and Australia, we also have a lot of cooperative groups and networks. In Australia, we have the Australian Clinical Trials Alliance, and that is an alliance networks. They have about 30 at least network members, as well as lots of individual members. And of those network members, about 11 or 12 of them are Australasian cancer trial networks. And many of the researchers in clinical research in cancer would be affiliated with one of those trans-Tasman cancer trial networks. So through that, New Zealand investigators are involved in trans-Tasman cooperative group trials. Also, in Aotearoa, we have Cancer Trials New Zealand, which facilitates the New Zealand research. And the operations office for Cancer Trials New Zealand up in Auckland, but we work with investigators and sites from across the country, supported mainly by the Cancer Society of Auckland. So I've said that these clinical trial groups come in all shapes and sizes, and they do, but there are two main types, which ACTA has designated as facilitating groups and coordinating. I think it's a very helpful distinction for what we're talking about next. So the idea of a facilitating group is that they facilitate the collaborative development and funding of clinical trials, but have little or no direct role in the management and coordination. So the management and coordination of clinical trials is allocated to one of the specialist trial coordinating centres. Those centres tend to sit in medical institutes or university departments, and they have their own governance, which is independent of the network governance. But having said that, the individuals who sit in both network and a coordinating centre. The coordinating networks, on the other hand, in addition to what facilitating networks do, also take on directly that role of coordinating trials, providing that direct project management. So for the New Zealand Aotearoa National Clinical Trials Network, what we're talking about, we go back to our sort of proposed clinical trial infrastructure, we're talking about facilitating. So the idea there is that the National Cancer Trial Network would be a facilitating network for cancer in New Zealand, and a coordinating activities would be provided through those regional hubs. So clearly, the facilitating networks, the cancer trials network, the clinical trial networks more broadly, would need to work very closely with that national infrastructure and with the regional hubs in order for the whole system to work most effectively. So you might ask why we need another network. This might be something to you, but we're all members of lots of networks. And the question is, what is this one going to bring that will make a difference? So the first thing is that most of us believe it's a transgender, and Aotearoa New Zealand is as we all know. We need to work within Te Ao Māori. We need to work with Māori communities. We need to work with New Zealand Māori research methods, and the same for our Pacific population. Cancer care is different in Aotearoa from Australia. There are enough publications out there showing that survival outcomes are worse for people in New Zealand than they are in Australia. And part of that is due to the fact that the medications available, treatments available in Australia, that we don't have in New Zealand within our healthcare system. So what that means is that we have different research questions that are unique to our populations and to our healthcare system. So that brings us to doing things that are unique for Aotearoa New Zealand. But in addition to that, most of the existing networks are disease specific within cancer. So actually, if we're going to work in a much smaller setting, New Zealand, then it's very valuable to borrow strength and expertise across all of cancer and health, rather than have a research disease site working together. This broad collaboration is really important for embedding clinical research into clinical care. So this idea of a living healthcare system. So we need broad collaboration from our research communities, from our communities, but also working with the healthcare system in order to have that embedding of clinical care. We need broad collaboration to address inequity. We need broad collaboration for prioritizing research questions. If we're talking cancer, we're talking precision cancer care, then it's going to be very important also to have collaboration with basic science and translational medicine so that we can bring that into the sphere for the treatment of cancer. So there's a lot of potential for this national cancer trial network. And what we hope is what the broad idea is something that looks like. So we have this national cancer trial network. And as part of that network, members of that network, people driving will be final cancer, community, clinicians, nurses, basic science, community healthcare, sure we can others, but I haven't done on there, who will be driving that. That network is going to be also to be working with the healthcare system, it's going to be with universities and research organizations. And across that network, they will have responsibility for identifying the research questions, but coordinating national efforts to address those research questions. They will have a responsibility for equity, both equity in terms of thinking about outcomes, but also equity in access to clinical trials, and that's both by ethnicity and geographically. The other thing that we would like is for them to be thinking about ensuring research quality. And so that means both Māori evidence and also Western best practice. And if we can do all that with a national cancer trials network, then we really have a lot of promise for improving cancer outcomes and improving equity of cancer. The next question is how we do this. And getting down into the more nitty-gritty detail of what this cancer trial network might look like, what it would do. And for that topic, I'm going to pass over to Sarah Bench. So thank you very much. I'm sorry I can't be there, but I look forward to hearing what comes out of your discussions over the next while. Thank you. Yeah.
Next.
Oh, I need to have you share.
And now we're going to hear from the wonderful Sarah.
Yeah, that's it.
No, the sound wasn't quite sharp on that one, so we'll try and find a way if we can get that video and put it up somewhere so you can rewatch it with a little bit more clarity. Unfortunately, that's technology.
Slides though.
Yes.
Slides.
Yep.
Yeah, I've got slides. Oh gosh, sorry guys.
Lots of stuff to do.
Yeah.
You can start.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Sarah Benj toku ingoa. My name's Sarah Benj and I'm the Research Operations Manager at Cancer Trials New Zealand, and I work with Katrina, who you've just heard. I've worked in clinical trials for over 20 years now, and most of that time has been in cancer trials. And I moved to New Zealand in 2011 from the UK, and I come originally from the north of England and now live northwest of Auckland, beside the mighty Kaipara Harbour. So I'm just going to follow on from Katrina. So this is aptly named part 2. And yeah. So Katrina's already explained that in clinical research, in clinical trials, there are 2 types of networks that are usually recognized. So these facilitating networks and coordinating networks. And it seems that within the clinical trials infrastructure that's been proposed in that amazing diagram that you saw, the model, that it'll be the facilitating type of network that will work for us here in New Zealand. So a Cancer Trials New Zealand, sorry, that's me, Cancer Trials Network could provide an organisational structure specifically for conducting cancer trials across the Motu and operating within this new infrastructure that we hope to see reasonably soon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just talk about what we did, and it'll bring us to the point of the questions that, that Nina mentioned in the opening. So we just wanted to think about what's the first step that Cancer Trials New Zealand could do in this space. And we were really fortunate to be given some time at the New Zealand Society for Oncology, NZSO, at their conference in Ahuriri, the stunning Napier, last year in September. And so we used that time to have a panel of speakers and conduct a facilitated workshop. We were really fortunate again to have these amazing wahine shown here come, most of them except for Eleanor, most of them presented online, but they agreed to come in that sense to present on clinical trials within their organisation, and then specifically cancer and specifically cancer trials and touching on cancer networks as well. So they really set the scene for the audience in that room before we moved into the facilitated workshop part. So the workshop, we had around 60 people in the room. These are people who were attending the conference, NZSO. So they were largely scientists, clinicians, but there were people from charities and government agencies as well. And these are all people that work in cancer in some capacity, and usually cancer research and usually cancer trials. We had 7 tables and there was a facilitator or a scribe on each of those tables. And what we did was we asked the questions that Nina put up earlier. We asked each table to consider each question in turn, and we asked them to think about those 2 questions from a variety of perspectives, or to consider a variety of perspectives, and we've just listed those here. So, for example, Māori researchers, Māori communities, consumers, clinical research, etc., researchers, etc. And our first question was, what is it important for a national cancer trials network to do in order to help improve cancer outcomes equitably? And the second question was, who might be a member of that network? Which organisations might that network have relationships with, and what might those relationships look like? In addition to the workshop, because we had 60 people, which was great, but they were quite a focused group. We wanted to cast the net further. So we created the same questions and the same background on an electronic survey, on a Qualtrics survey, and we sent that out to our mailing list, to a number of research managers around the country, clinicians. NZSO also sent it out to their members. We don't know what the denominator is because we just said pass it on, but we got 36 responses that way as well. So that then brings us to here, and it would be really great. I think sort of Nina's already introduced this already, and so it's Kimmy. I believe that these questions are on Slido, is that right? More or less? Sort of. Well, if not, so I mean, it would just be really great to just take this opportunity if anyone does, want to give some responses to these questions, and then this is an opportunity to do that. There's a QR code if you want to, or if they're on Slido, then you can do Slido. And for those of you online, if you can't, with too many devices, if you can't take a screen, scan this QR code, I think we can put the put the link into the chat as well if people wanted to do that. So it would be really great if we could pull some responses from this audience as well. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. We'll now get straight into the wānanga. I realise Lisa has to go at 3, but we've also want to finish at 3. So we're going to have our summary session at 5 to 3, so we can close up the whole day, 2 days. So Sarah, are you able to come down and join the panel? We're going to go to, and I'm going to hand over the rākau to you, Evo, George Laking, our chief from Te Whakatoa here, medical oncologist, one of the co-directors of Te Aka Mātauranga Mate Pukapuku. We all know George, we all love George, so I'm looking forward to hearing you organise off. Kia ora, Evo. Yep. Oh, you've got those questions here? Yeah, I've got those questions here. Got these. Yeah, we can.
Kia ora tātou. This is a really exciting time, I think. And I feel just my own whakapapa for this. I've been a little bit out of the loop of this kaupapa for the last year, and that relates to some personal reasons, having to have some time off. Absolutely delighted to see the progress that's been made that you've told us about, Sarah and Katrina, at the New Zealand Society for Oncology meeting last year, and how that in turn builds on the prompt from the previous government. That was the 6th Labour government, I believe, that put the health reforms in place, and we saw changes to the operation of clinical research as part of those reforms. I admit I hadn't personally been aware of the work that you're doing, Lisa, with the team at Te Whatu Ora. So for me, that was quite revelatory to see the progress that you guys have made intellectually in terms of the concept of a national network. I dare say at some point I suppose we should lay to rest that topic of, is it a trials network or is it a research network? And I see that the literature from Te Whatu Ora is using the word trials, so I dare say it looks like that's the official word. So what I might suggest is the way to resolve that is to do what Pharmac have done. Pharmac had to resolve the funding of pharmaceuticals when they took on the funding of medical devices, and they resolved that by saying, for their purposes, any medical device is a pharmaceutical, and that could actually include a biro that you use to write in your chart. That's now a pharmaceutical, and so it comes under the ambit of Pharmac, doesn't it? What I'd like to suggest is we can use the word trials today, but we can think about that as including the wider concept of research. And I'm sure people who are into the use of language and words can think of ways to sort of back up that usage of the word trials. That was my personal suggestion. And so the final sort of part of this preamble in terms of whakapapa that's brought us to this point today is, as this kind of personal, Katrina mentioned the name of Professor Michael Findlay, who's now retired from the University of Auckland, but before that from the Whanganui-a-Tara, working in Wellington. Michael Findlay was my teacher at the start of my career, and the first time I ever met Michael, he said clinical trials. Like any conversation you have with him, it would have the words clinical trials in it at some point. And so he moved to here to set up Cancer Trials New Zealand, always with an Aotearoa-wide focus, hence the central role of Katrina, who's based out of Otago, and then Michael Jamison, who's based out of Waikato. There was always Mike Findlay's perspective, and I genuinely believe that man made it his life's work to see what is at the cusp of fruition right now with the National Clinical Trials Network. So personally, that was the guy who started me on my oncology training. So I feel a loyalty, and I always want to say Mike's name. Yeah, or patron. Yeah. Yeah, I honestly feel because Mike for various reasons in retirement, it's a little bit bittersweet, and so I would love to see that. I'm a little bit biased. I probably would have to declare a conflict when it came to the vote for that, but if awesome. So the time just now is 2:28, which gives us about 25 minutes to talk around some of the topics that's come to light. Some of you have kindly fed through questions on the Slido, and I think my role as facilitator is to transfer the questions to the panel and then really let the panel go to it. So if you think of more questions along the way, please can you put them in the Slido. Is there anyone in the room who hasn't been able to access the Slido? Okay. That's why it's there. Okay, so I've got 3 questions, and I get to choose which one to ask first. How about the first one? Oh, okay. Yeah. So by popular acclaim, the first question. Most of the research we hear about emphasizes what you're researching. That's, fascinating for us nerdy people. However, there's relatively little emphasis on why you are researching that. And then who gets to decide the priorities for selection of topics for research. Dr. Nina Scott, you're holding the microphone, so over to you.
Research and also the health research council and another places that you get the money out to researchers. And they don't take a certain proportion of the points that you need to get the funding into the rationale, which is the why do you need to do this research? So if you don't give a very good why, then you won't get the money unless that's for that's when you're applying for research funding from agencies, but research council the Cancer Society and others. And then the pharmaceutical company and they have their own rationale for why they want to fund research. And I mentioned some of that's to do with the bottom line, not all for the good of the world.
No, that was pretty much it, actually. Who decides the research priorities? And I'd like to drill a bit deeper with that question, if I may, because I think you've identified the Health Research Council. Sarah's got something to say, so I'm just going to let Sarah say her thing.
But one of the things that we did find that people said that they would want a network to do was to be involved in prioritisation, which is great. Because that's public hearing network. One of the many things, but definitely prioritisation of what research often happen here should be.
Cool.
George.
Well, actually, I was,
There you go.
well, we have one of the network architects on the big screen on the wall. Is that going to be allowed? Yeah, by the networks.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, please.
I can't, can you just translate what Sarah said? I can't hear anything that's coming through the microphone. I can only hear you, George.
There's prioritisation going to be part of.
Yeah.
This. It's excellent. So in just talking around prioritisation, I don't think we've been doing it as a country. So when you sit on these panels, like in the Health Research Council, the rationale is considered for the particular proposal. And as a result, I think, the result of all research funding in New Zealand is probably to increase inequalities, because we are not even thinking about it from the big picture perspective. So, for example, we are probably, when you look at it, we're probably finding in a way that's increasing inequalities, because we're going to be differentially privileging those who are already privileged. So this is what we need to do, right? We need to have a look at what we're doing as a country to make sure that we are just nailing those inequities and getting rid of them. And that's why, we privilege the lung cancer research, because that's such a big cause of the life expectancy gap in the breast cancer. That's, and the travel thing's huge as well. So we actually, I think the networks are really exciting, so we can start doing the things that need to be done to eliminate inequities.
So I think this is multifaceted, and obviously the Health Research Council have got their priorities for funding. I think that everybody, each group in a way has its own priorities, and I think that the networks actually will, they'll be able to develop their own research priorities in collaboration with the people who are involved with the network and the wider stakeholder groups. It's like, Te Whatu Ora will have its own research priorities that it wants to do, and they should be able to set some of those as well. So, I think, yes, the networks will have a huge role to play in setting priorities within their network for what is done, and then potentially what is supported by the network.
That's cool. We'll take this a little bit further in a moment, but I just want to remind everyone in the room with your Slidos that you can vote for which questions you would like to have answered. So the questions that you like, can you put a tick next to them so that I can feed them into the panel? So the point I wanted to make just now is that ultimately, the people in charge of the money for this are going to have a lot of power. So a network may have ideas about what the priority should be, but there's a huge amount of institutional power for the HRC just now. And so the decisions made, to my mind, tell us a lot about the values and culture of the HRC, which I personally feel is in a pretty good place at the moment. I suppose I'm biased because I've received some of their funding recently. But what is topical is this is all under review at the moment. I think I'm correct in saying. And I just wondered if any of the people on the panel have some thoughts about the possible direction of travel given the review of the HRC, which which may be an early strategic challenge, to be honest, for our network if we find our publicly funded research sponsoring environment changing as a result of this review. And if that sparks questions for people in the room, put them on the Slido, please.
So, you know, the science of the review comes to the background for the support of the and for all of you that any time to put in a submission for money, there's been like a week. And in my submission, I put, put it on behalf of our my citizens, which is on, you know, the Aotearoa Island. We, you know, we put that we need to not take our Māori research off and shove it into some kind of dark corner. That needs to be integrated into all facets of research and you know, focus on enhancing Māori research workforce and working to strengthen the capacity of community organisations to do research. And as well as part of all the stuff like enhancing access to clinical trials, supporting these kind of things. And what I see about the HRC, that they have been a fantastic job, and it will be a real pity to see all that those decades of work wiped out. That's what you're thinking.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. However, I think just for today, we should definitely grab the win today, which is that we're on the cusp of getting a national cancer trials network. And so maybe some more things happen at the HRC. My own feeling is the health system reforms that granted us this network, it's hard to see those being overturned again. It's hard to see another set of reforms happening for a generation. So I think this network's likely to be with us for a generation. And so what's happening now with the HRC, I would say is part of what the current government is interested in. And the current government won't be here for a generation, just putting it out there.
Will very strong in local force. We need to share and groups we willing to speak publicly on what we're thinking. It needs to happen. What should be happening. But that's part of the benefit of having a network that was into allies. Cancer research into into involve more people in the discussion. So just the other one that's going on next door with the UMA Partnership Board in our research council, but I was at just at lunch. We had some very good discussions there. And what we wanted to do is develop ways of strengthening the research infrastructure in community organisations and figuring out, because we have to do that. It can't just be the universities doing the cancer research. It has to be, we have to be connected to the partner, and the best way to do that is through the community organisation. And they want to get involved. So we need to figure out how we do that. So we have one with the northern IMPB groups, and we have another 3 to go around the country. So that's a challenge and an opportunity. Also, for separate groups, we need to act quickly to invite the partnership into the
Sure.
And final we fill out the ones today, and Tanya gave us the most excellent challenge. The final needs to be the benchmark, so we need to set up a network that is inclusive of whānau and need to identify, what are the cancer research priorities for whānau. Where do we go?
George, before we go back to questions, I just thought maybe this is a good point to just mention some of the, Sarah, and you put up a question number one, I reframed it, mostly looking at what priorities of National Cancer Research Network would focus on. I just thought I'd share 3 open comments to encourage more participation on this question. So what priorities do you think are important for National Clinical Trials Network to improve outcomes equitably? 3 things that came up was community communication, would be one. Having a template or checklist from what to do and not to do. Sorry, Ian. No, that's all right.
Now I think you're on the panel. You're on the panel now. Yeah, come up here. You're on the panel.
I was just going to read them. To be the voice of people out there. Community communication, 3 priorities so far. Keep them coming. Community communication, having a template or checklist from what to do and what not to do, not what to do. And access to cutting edge therapeutics. So those are the 3 that have come through so far. I'm going to pop up another one soon, so get your ideas in now in response to Sarah's second question.
Kia ora.
That's all?
Yeah.
Sorry, didn't mean to come on.
Okay. I'm very glad you've mentioned whānau hoa and community. And I think it's one of those things when you start a new thing, you have a chance to really get off to a good start. So here, mihi to tangata hoa, tangata whaiora, whaikaha, kia ora.
Should also, especially on in more, I should also mention the Whairango, or the more national cancer research network. And we just happen to have the lead for Whairango here the last few days. So can you please tell us about that? I mean, because I think more, I don't know. It's our little tiny baby national Māori cancer research network, isn't it?
It is.
And yeah, we're doing all right.
Yes. Okay. Yes, it is. Okay, so it's sort of how Hei Ahuri Mōwai we're trying to explore how we engage with research. We do already do great advocacy type work and trying to shape health policy, try to put out position statements, that kind of thing in a national network. So Nina's led us for a long time in that area. And Hei Ahuri Mōwai is actually quite a novel organization if you think about all the work you've done for a long time, but we're, and so we're exploring how as you grow more, your name a bit more, people start going, researchers go, how can I engage with Hei Ahuri Mōwai more regularly, right? So this is one of the things we're trying to figure out, what that looks like. What is our mechanism of use? I think from my perspective, there are different perspectives, but from my perspective, it's how do we mobilize those connections nationally? So within Hei Ahuri Mōwai, perhaps our role is just to mobilize our Māori research network in that sort of way. And then through other ways, we've tried to figure out a more formal interface between our Paerangaho and Hei Ahuri Mōwai and traditional research networks. Example would be New Zealand Society for Oncology. Our first opening session of NZSO is kind of stemmed from part of that inspiration. How can Hei Ahuri Mōwai shape the way that we might share our priorities or Māori speakers to the New Zealand Society for Oncology? And so that was George and I and Nina as well in partnership with the president of the NZSO. So that was sort of an organic relationship. CTNZ, there's some stuff going on there as well. Te Akama Tauranga. So they're all around partnerships with the intent of supporting researchers to address the goals.
These sound like activities that would naturally be threaded into the heading of a National Cancer Trials Network.
But I mean, I see it as our potential for how we figure out our side, our tino rangatira space. If we're looking at a Matike Mai model, that Paerangaho could be the vehicle for us in Hei Ahuri Mōwai Māori network to think about our tino rangatira space. And then this network perhaps could be the Kawanatanga space. And then in the middle, we've got the relational space where those two networks perhaps work. So we get our chance to do our little thing our way, our Māori way. Does that make sense? That's sort of what I would imagine.
So folks, we're talking about co-governance now. I think it's still allowed for the next 2 years.
We still have a founding document that pretty much.
Precisely, and so there's quite a prevalent co-governance concept of three houses. There's well, broadly speaking, the Māori side, the Crown side, and then in between them, there's kind of like a shared space, relational space, which is quite a handy way of thinking about how to get the different perspectives, having space to do things at the same time as working together. Sarah, you're holding the mic with intent.
Sarah, just say what you said. Sarah said that.
Yeah, that does say.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted to hear. Thank you, Sarah. But Sarah says it. But does Lisa say it? Does Lisa say that sounds good? I don't know if Lisa's been able to hear that conversation that we've been having about what we're going to be doing. Did it come through? And if it did,
I can hear most of it, and I can hear the co-governance, and I like your concept of the two separate and the space in the middle, which we need to fill appropriately to make this work for everybody.
So we launched the network and we got co-governance happening.
kia ora. Yeah. How about that?
It'll go.
Well, we still got some interested questions on here from the room with 7 minutes to go. There's one that's sitting on a 3, one that's sitting on a 4. I might start with the 3. We've mentioned the word equity. It has and with the idea that it has been underplayed traditionally in clinical trial networks. And I'm sure from the previous comments that equity is going to be a big part of prioritizing projects. But what are some of the things that predict we'll actually achieve equity with our trials? What's some of the content there? How do you get a strong Hōora Māori and equity focus for the network?
Paper by Vanessa Siller, 2013, equal explanatory power in a cardiovascular study, noting primary care probably a little bit easier to recruit. So, it's a type of study that could work quite well in that context. But the argument really was that clinical trials won't address equity unless you design trials specifically to address equity. Clinical trials in and of themselves will not reach that gap. So just simply saying you're welcome to join is not enough. You actually have to plan and design studies to get the data that represents that samples appropriately to answer the right question, essentially. I think sometimes the idea of prioritizing groups is really uncomfortable for people. They can't quite bring themselves to realize it. And so they'll just go, I'm going to do a random sample because that's fair, 17% of the population. But there's a good chance that your study will fail because it will not generate the data needed to answer the question. All you're doing is letting people in proportionally to the population. And so if the question is around differences between population, design the study to collect the data so that you can answer the question, not just the perception of fairness, I suppose. Does that make sense? And I think that's fundamental. And fortunately, Sue Kringle, who's here, and Matire Harwood, we're all part of that project and shaped it. And they do have a blueprint for how, from a high level, it's then just basically how do you operationalize that needs, people and resourcing. And that is probably the challenge, but at least the drive, the blueprint's there.
We need templates and little workshops and stuff. So
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Design and it's getting the operation. And so that brings us on to the decentralized trials and the trials model. Getting those trials into those communities.
So decentralized trials is exciting initiative for us that's found favour with the HRC. And if I can summarize it in a sentence, hopefully correctly, it is the idea that clinical trials would be accessible beyond, say, the immediate centre that we find ourselves in. A way of opening up accessibility to clinical trials. We had a very strict notion of geographical recruitment or study centre historically. With a decentralised trial, you figure out ways to be able to recruit more widely. It's a big business setting up a centre.
Can I just make a comment there, George?
Lisa, yeah.
So I think just within the National Clinical Trials Infrastructure work stream, we have a lot of work being identified on the issues that have been raised around Māori participation and trial design to facilitate that, and equal explanatory power and all those issues that have been raised. And I think that there's a lot of education that needs to go on amongst clinical trialists in this area. And so rest assured, we have a big work stream, and hopefully some of the people that are in the room will be wanting to get involved in that work to help guide the country in it.
So that sounds like that'll be creating a favourable environment for distributed decentralised clinical trials, and socialising the value of that at places that haven't been necessarily able to access trials before. So thank you for doing the groundwork for that, Lisa. I just wanted to add that I feel that from a purely nerdy perspective as scientists, if you think about like what makes us in this place, what are the things that we can see here that no other scientists around the world are able to see? We are who we are. We're not the same as the other countries in the world, and especially from the perspective of being in the Pacific. With Māori and Pacific populations. So if we go for equal explanatory power with what we do, there is no other scientist that's in a position to do that. I mean, if you have a protocol happening in Spain, they're going to find it hard to get equal explanatory power for Māori in Spain. So that's a head start for everyone with the from the science side of things. I will ask them. Yes, Nina.
In working in Pacific, and including Pacific leaders in the Aotearoa, but also across the Pacific region, know it very well. So we have the Pacific region Indigenous Doctors Congress, where we all kind of get together, and we have World Indigenous Cancer Network, and we don't have very good representation from Pacific partners in Canada. I went to the Pacific Medical Association conference, I think it was this year, I just think we need to do better in that space from a equal explanatory power as well as equal analytical power. So making sure that we are able to interpret data. Because Pahaina is always saying that data doesn't speak for itself and needs to be interpreted. And obviously, we also need to involve Whānau in the interpretation and analysis of data as well, and get better at that. And workshops on how to do this. But, we're getting pretty good at IT stuff, and we can have stuff online that's downloadable and templates that we can kind of do. We have like regional get-togethers so we can collaboration, all that kind of stuff.
Kia ora. So that sounds like a statement of intent to cast our gaze not only across Aotearoa but across Te Moana Nui a Kiwa. And I guess alongside that goes the point that it all hinges on the quality of community engagement. I mean, nothing about us without us, which is rings in the ears, very well articulated from the whānau hoa side, nothing about us without us. So we commit to growing those community connections and hopefully will be able to be of service.
I don't know, because we will have a voice, but it's not just going to be about facilitating, checking cancer research. It's going to be subjective to see from politics, and political, you know, and in the Pacific, some countries can't afford HPV vaccination. You know, the only cancer that's almost 100% preventable through vaccination and screening, and other countries can't afford payload for people who are dying from cancer. And we should all make sure that we look after people.
I'm going to have to.
I'll respond to one thing. And it's,
You can.
okay, it's about Slido. Last Slido question for those of you who want to put your hands up for clinical trials or can suggest or want to dob in your own organisation to do that. That's the Slido question. What organisations need to be involved? So that's going live. I'm only going to run that for a moment before we close. Just wanted to highlight that.
Oh, kia ora. Well, so you better answer Kimmy's question, please. Yeah. So, all right. Well, the moment has arrived. I'm going to have to complete our panel session. I just feel a bit whakamā because there are some awesome questions there which I haven't sent to the panel so far. I mean, really interesting stuff, engaging with how the Trials Network works. I mean, what about the diseases that we don't typically see in Māori, for example? Diseases actually, are we underestimating prevalence of diseases or some conditions that are less frequent amongst Māori? The system performs worse for them. You know, like melanoma is the worst, is probably the best example of that. Pretty rare in Māori, but also the worst one to get if you are. So that was a question, and I think we'll take these questions away because they're very important in shaping up the program. And I think from today, everyone here knows where to find the leadership of this program to remain part of building our national trials network. I mean, there's other stuff like how we're going to do it regionally. I know Lisa's working on that, yeah.
George, can I just come back to your question about the name before you finish?
Sure.
And I think that the name is up for grabs. It was always the intent with the National Clinical Trials Infrastructure that it would initially be focused on clinical trials, but acknowledge that it could be used for many other types of research. And I don't think we should be limiting the cancer network to clinical trials, unless you want to do it that way first and then expand. I think that there's opportunity at the start to set this up how you want to and to cover the types of research that you want it to cover. So don't feel limited by the clinical trials infrastructure name.
Kia ora. Thank you ever so much for that, Lisa. And now I will add a further point. Let's go on the hunt for a ingoa Māori for our National Cancer Research Network, because one of the good things about ingoa Māori, there's a lot of good things about having an ingoa Māori, a Māori name, but one of them is you just get to sidestep a whole lot of that stuff about, like, is it trials or is it research? No, it's what it is in its Māori name, and we'll tell you what that means. Thank you very much. So I'm going to take a step back from the podium. I'd like everyone to just, I guess, express hō mai te paki for our panel, please.
Well done. Thank you very much, Lisa. I'm just going to close this out for the day without taking too much time. Thank you for contributing on Slido. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to keep it live so you can do it as you're walking to catch the bus or go to your car or go back to your office. And that really is just to get a bit of a word cloud I've triggered that now, for what were the highlights? I know it's nice to give some negative feedback as well, but what were the highlights of the Matariki in the spirit of future and celebration of the new year, of the Māori New Year? What were some of the highlights of the Matariki Rangahau series? Yeah, so I'll leave that with you. I want to take up too much more time other than please do consider ways to celebrate Matariki in the coming week. We get it's not just a public holiday on Friday, it is a chance to reflect, reconnect, bring us all together and then plan for the year ahead. And I want to get into the habit of doing meetings like that. Nina, what's the something?
I just want to thank Kimmy for being amazing. And thank you 2 days over there. Pretty much doing hardly any sleep. I know there were late night emails and early morning starts, and yeah, you've done an amazing job. And also thanks to Emma, who's been part of the late night, early morning team from Te Akamātou Rangamatāwhātuko, and Caprice Frethi, who prefers to remain in the background, but has really been in the foreground of making all of this happen, right? And also Tina up there in the corner. Thank you very much, especially for supporting our whānau hawa through the couple of days. So, and to all of you for coming and participating. And Raina, who actually, this is Raina's baby. Raina's up there very quietly in the corner as well, helped start Matariki Rangahau series. And we do it on the smell of an oily rag with, you know, only a few weeks to organise. Next year, we'll start organising next year's today, or maybe tomorrow. So more time, but
Yeah, a couple more this year.
oh yes, we have
Sounds
one in Hamilton, at the park at the University of Waikato. Haven't got a date for that one. We've got one in Porneke. We have a date for that, but I can't remember what it is. 19th of August. Tina's on it. And 30th of August in Christchurch, with Suzanne Peterman's crew down there. So it's going to be fun. You guys can zoom in or come in person. Yeah, and thank you once again, Kimmy. Kia ora.
Pleasure, thank you. Kia ora. Speaking of meetings coming up, NZSO in Auckland, here, that's a great one. We're in the middle of organising a Talanoa Pacific panel for the end of the first day. So that'll be awesome, getting some more important voices, obviously, and starting with our usual Hea Koranga Whakahaungia. And at the moment, we've got Dr. Nadine Caron coming over, who is Canada's first Indigenous female surgeon. She's fantastic. And so she's coming as long as nothing disastrous happens in terms of her very busy surgical load. So she's locked in and coming as well. So that'll be awesome. Enough plugs, shameless plugs. I'm going to close us out. Remember, there is a cup of tea. Thank you everyone for participating. Just wanted to echo this thanks to Emma for helping us with everything, and Travis working around the background, and Chris and the rest of the team. Awesome. I'm going to go with Scotty Morrison's beautiful karakia that was kohard over Twitter, and there's the translation word for word by his the beautiful Stacey Morrison on the right hand side. And te ea is demeanor reaches satisfaction. It's the Māori concept of take utu ea. Take meaning something has happened. Utu is how you respond to that. Often utu has been used as the word revenge. That's not quite correct. It's how you correct the issue that has happened rather than that. And ea, it's done in a way where we've reached a point of satisfaction. So the word ea just simply means we've reached a point where I think we're happy to close it. So in that, like, te whakaeatanga e, te whakaeatanga e, tēnei te kaupapa ka e, tēnei te wānanga ka e, te mauri o te kaupapa ka whakamoia, te mauri o te wānanga ka whakamoia, koa ki runga, koa ki raro, haumie, hui e, ai ki. Kia ora.